Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns, where we break down each and every fight for the upcoming UFC card in a minute to 2 minutes at most. First and foremost, thank you all for the support on the new video with the PFL interviews. It means a lot, and I'm glad you guys like it. Second of all, don't forget tomorrow these matchups start at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. So bring out the popcorn early and let's enjoy these fights. Get those bets in if you have some bets planned, and let's make some money. And lastly, if you haven't already, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out the algorithm, helps me out, and it helps me keep making these videos too. But first and foremost, I want to also say if you have any sort of opinion on any of the fights that we talk about today, please leave your comments in the live as I'm talking about these fights, and I'm very curious to hear your guys' opinions on them because we have a lot of interesting matchups to say the least. We had a bit of a card shuffle around with the Morgan Charrier fight and Taylor Lapis fight, so pretty last minute matchups in a sense, but still have some interesting discussions. First and foremost, let's go ahead and shout out the chat. First and foremost, Alec, I appreciate you popping in. I'm doing well, my guy. It's been a minute. You're right. I haven't seen you in the chat for a little bit, but I'm glad you're here today. So I appreciate the kind words and looking to continue the grind. Kristen, as always, thank you for being in the chat. I appreciate you. My guy Seba's always in the chat supporting. I'm doing well, my guy. How are you doing? Eli, we got Eli. How's it going? Yeah, you're right. So many debuts, and there's debutants going against debutants. So someone's got to shit the bed at some point. And without further ado, y'all ready? Let's do this. Just got back from training, so that was needed. First fight of the night, we have Zara Fern going up against UFC newcomer Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Zara Fern on a 3-fight losing streak. She's 39 years old. She'll be older than Jacqueline by 13 years. It's huge, and we all know that statistic about the over 10-year age gap. She will be the shorter fighter by 1 inch, and we do not have the reach metrics on Jacqueline, but 73.2 is what's listed for Zara here. Jacqueline Cavalcanti is known as a finisher on the regional scene for the most part. And Zara Fern, to be quite honest, I do not know how she's still in the UFC. I get it. We don't have that many ladies up in the higher weight classes, so maybe that's a reason. But she just completely lacks a ground game. With all due respect, and on the feet, she really can only bully people who are smaller than her, and even then, she leaves her face wide open to get hit. And Jacqueline is someone who, yeah, can be wild at sometimes with the striking. But to be honest, I really think that if Jacqueline wants to win this fight with the easiest path, least path of resistance, then she would probably want to take Zara Fern down in round 1 and go from there because Zara has no ground game whatsoever. And yeah, I just think Jacqueline is the more powerful puncher, the faster striker, and man, I just don't know if this is the last fight for Zara Fern or if they're looking to keep her around just because she's one of the few at this higher weight class. But yeah, Jacqueline Cavalcanti inside the distance is probably my prediction for this fight. Let's check out this chat. Yes, sir. Let's do it. Dude, I love the early violence at times too, especially even though it's on the West Coast here for me. 9 a.m., got to wake up, brew some coffee, and enjoy some nice violence to wake up real quick. My guy Everett, thank you so much for leaving a comment. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you gain some sort of knowledge to help you out tomorrow. Thank you for stopping by, and leave a like and a subscribe. And my guy Moises, as always, thank you, my man. I really appreciate you supporting. But let's go ahead and move on to this next fight. We have Farid Bashra going up against Clayton Rodriguez. Clayton Rodriguez moving up to bantamweight for this fight for the first time after multiple weight misses, quite frankly, at flyweight. So I think it's about time. So we have the younger fighter in Farid Bashra by 1 year. He will also be the taller man by 2 inches. He also will be at a reach advantage here of 4 inches. Training out of Extreme Couture and also Black Cobra MMA with my guy Dewey Cooper. We all know his striking is legit. And then Clayton Rodriguez going to shoot to box for this camp, Charles Oliveira's camp. So here's the thing for me. Clayton Rodriguez was always able to use his physicality down at 125, even when he used to miss weight. I don't think that's going to be possible here against Farid Bashara. I know the size difference isn't too much of a discrepancy, but I think Farid Bashara is a complete fighter with a well-rounded game. I do think that the striking, the wrestling, and the grappling is all going to be on the side of Farid Bashara. But for some odd reason, I feel really funny about this line being minus 400 for someone who's only making their second UFC fight. Across town, I mean, I guess he used to live in England with his brother Javid, but it's always a weird situation when these fighters have to travel long ways from the US for Farid, and then from Brazil for Clayton. And Clayton striking, sure, he has some power, but that was at 125. We've yet to see how he fares out at 135. It's a lot of question marks. Sure, Farid didn't look that well in his first UFC fight against Damon Blackshear, who, you know what, that's aging to be a great win. I just can't go anywhere near this fight just because of the unknowns of Clayton moving up and how he performs, because his biggest issue was A, the cardio dump, and B, just that huge weight cut taking a toll on his body and not just pretty much losing the strength. So I'm staying far away. I think Farid should be able to get this done by decision. Both guys are pretty durable, and I'm just gonna have to go with Farid here as the more well-rounded fighter, the guy that I can trust at this weight class. Next up, we have Nora Coronoli making her UFC debut, going up against Jocelyn Edwards. Coronoli is going to be the older fighter by 6 years. She'll be shorter by 1 inch. We do not have reach metrics on Nora, but Jocelyn Edwards, 70, and she is training still out of King's MMA. I have not been around the gym, so I have not seen Jocelyn there. I've been floating around different gyms, so I can't really say anything with confidence about her training. But the one thing that we noticed in those face-offs and in the weigh-ins, this is the best that Jocelyn Edwards has ever looked shape-wise coming into a fight. She is ripped, she's lean, and I really think that she's going to come out here and put on a performance, because what is the one weakness that Jocelyn Edwards has? And it's the grappling and the wrestling. Nora Coronoli does not present any threat to wrestling or grappling. So this fight's primarily going to be played out on the feet. And to be honest, I think Jocelyn Edwards can land a takedown of her own and be heavy on top, win some minutes on the mat here. But to be honest, I think the front kicks, the teep kicks for Jocelyn Edwards are going to work magic. Her jab's going to be pumping in this fight. And at minus 130, I have to go with the fighter that has more experience at the higher level, not facing cans on the regional scene, and someone that we have seen time and time again go out there with good cardio. So I know she used to fade a little bit towards that third round, but she holds up and she fights all the way through these 3 rounds. So I'm going to have to go with Jocelyn Edwards here at minus 130. I just don't really like this chick, Nora, especially the way she gets hit on the regional scene. I don't know. This might be the fight where Jocelyn Edwards gets her finish. Next up, we have Angelusa going up against Reese McKee. Angelusa is the favorite in this fight. He'll be older by 2 years. He's going to be the shorter fighter by 3 inches. He will also be, wait, am I doing my math right? Shorter fighter by 4 inches, sorry. And then we'll be at a 4-inch reach disadvantage. So the one thing about this fight is both guys are stupid durable. Both guys get hit a ridiculous amount. They do not have the best striking defense. Reese McKee is a guy that pumps out his jab and uses it really well. And Angelusa is a guy that has power in his hands, but sometimes can be timid and make a fight a staring contest, for if you guys know what I mean. I really think that if Angelusa wants to win this fight, and I think this is a very a very valid game plan, is to mix it up with the wrestling. We've seen him wrestle a little bit here and there throughout his career. And we've seen Reese McKee's takedown defense. It's horrible. And Angelusa can win minutes on the ground. I think if Angelusa wants to win this fight, he has to take the fight down to the mat at some point, because on the feet, both fighters, I think, present equal threat is the word that I'm looking for. Reese with the jab and Angelusa with the power shots. Reese has that tall man defense, and I don't really like it. Can utilize some kicks too, but yeah, I'm just gonna stay away from this one. For a pick's sake, I'm gonna have to choose Angelusa because I do think he's gonna wrestle in this matchup and win minutes on the ground. But no way am I laying this minus 180 price tag on Angelusa, where he has had a grappling advantage and wrestling advantage in the past and has just not gone to it. So I can't trust him to do that this time out. I know some sharp guys that are on Angelusa, and I agree with it, but do I want to put my money there? Probably not. So give me Angelusa by decision here. Both guys are stupid durable. Next up, we have Taylor Lapis going up against Kellen Loughran. Both guys making their UFC debut, and both guys were scheduled to fight different fights until the mix-up earlier this week. And both guys had way more favorable matchups. So the line is a little bit closer this time around. Taylor is 31 years old. He'll be the older fighter by 4 years. Both fighters are 5'6". We do not have reach metrics on Kellen, but 73 inches of reach for Taylor. Training out of the MMA Factory. I believe that's with Cyril Gane. And Team Calvon Liverpool for Kellen Loughran. So this is the way I think of this fight. On the feet, sure, Kellen Loughran has some power, but he leaves his face way too open. And when he's throwing his straight punches, he doesn't really throw it like a boxer where it's just straight. He angles it out, leaving an opening right over here to get countered. And Taylor Lapis throws straight. So I think that Taylor on the counter is going to be money here. I think he can hurt Loughran on the counter. But if Loughran does find some success with the wrestling, I think he can win some minutes here. Lapis does have a decent get-up game, so I'll give him that. I think Lapis is going to be able to stay away from the wrestling of Loughran. I think he'll be the better striker in this matchup and the more powerful guy. He might find a finish of his own, but I do favor the decision line a little bit more. But I think this is too close of a matchup for me to put any money towards. So I'm staying away. But I think this is going to be a really fun fight to watch. I'm going to have to keep my eyes peeled on this one because it could end any second. But yeah, give me the more powerful striker, the better technical striker as well with Taylor, and the hometown kid. This dude is funny at ceremonial weigh-ins. Are you talking about Taylor or Kellen? I think you're talking about Kellen, right? Yeah, that was crazy. Next up, we have Morgan Charrier going up against Manolo Zecchini. Morgan Charrier is a big favorite. He's a year older at 27 years old. He'll be 1 inch shorter, and we do not have reach metrics on these fighters. So I'm just going to break this down really quickly. Manolo is a decent striker and carries a lot of power. He'll get up in your face and he will press action. But that's probably going to serve to this disadvantage in this fight. The reason I say that is Morgan is also a really good striker, also carries power, a little bit better defensively. But the one key thing in Morgan's game that I think is what's going to win him the fight is his wrestling. I think every time that Manolo overextends here, he's going to get taken down by Morgan, and Morgan's just going to ride it out on top or possibly find a submission. I know a lot of people are on this submission line and they crashed it from minus 750 to minus 4. So the grappling path is clear as day. And if I were to give out my most confident parlay piece on the card, it's going to be Morgan Charrier, just for the sheer fact that he can win minutes and he can find takedowns whenever he wants in this fight. So give me Morgan Charrier inside the distance. Give me him as a parlay piece. I really like this guy. And I think his record, although 18-9-1, I don't think it does him justice to his skill set. Go ahead and rewatch his tape and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm really impressed with his game. So yeah, give me Morgan inside the distance. Next up, we have one of the two Twitter wars of the week. We have William Gomey going up against Giannis Gamori. William Gomey is going to be the younger fighter by 2 years. He'll be the taller fighter by, let me count on my fingers here so I don't mix this up, uh, by 4 inches. We don't have reach metrics on Gamori, but 73 inches in reach for William Gomey. I'm pretty sure he's the longer striker in this fight. And training also out of the MMA factory, whereas Climax Fight Academy, what a name for Giannis Gamori. That's it's too fun. Giannis Gamori is a decent striker, carries some power, and I do like his technicality on the feet. But for me, I just think a lot of people have the wrong idea of a guy in William Gomey who I really think he can go to the grappling and wrestling in this fight whenever he wants and win minutes on the ground. His longer frame is going to help him a lot in this fight, just being on top. And he can pump out his jab. He's a serviceable striker, and technically he's pretty sound. Speed, I wouldn't give him that much, and also the power, not really anything crazy. This fight is favored to go to decision. So for me, I think it's going to be William Gomey by decision. Personally, I'm against most of what the people are taking in this fight, which is the dog shot on Gamori. But I'm just not really impressed with this kid. I usually am not really too high on anyone coming from the Middle Eastern regional scene, even though I am Middle Eastern as well, and I used to train with people out there from that area. But I'm just not high of any guy that's coming from that region, just because the strength of schedule and the competition level is just not high. So give me William Gomey, the hometown kid, to get another win in the UFC. Next up, we have fraud check alert. Volkan Oezdamir going up against Bogdan Guskov. Volkan Oezdamir is going to be the older fighter by 3 years. He's going to be the shorter fighter by 1 inch. We do not have reach metrics on Bogdan, but Volkan Oezdamir 75-inch reach. And yeah, we have Bogdan, the guy that was hitting pads, hitting mitts on the plane. Interesting. But yeah, we see this guy Bogdan has not really left the first round, and is someone that once the bell rings, he's going to get up in your face and just swing heavies. You get to see a couple of fights where he's getting hurt by jabs from middleweights. If that doesn't ring the alarm bells for you, I don't know what will. There's a reason this fight is favored heavily to go under 1.5 rounds, and it's because of the way Guskov fights. He'll just go out there and he'll swing in your face. And I think a guy like Volkan Oezdamir, I think he's being a little bit disrespected with this line. I know it's minus 180 right now, but this guy has lost only to the cream of the crop, the Magomed Ankalaevs, the Paul Craigs, and then last time out he lost to Krylov, who he took to a decision. Krylov really doesn't go to decisions all that often. He's finishing his fights. So the narrative of his chin fading and him not looking the same, I think is completely false. And also just the level of competition is uncomparable. We have a can crusher in Bogdan who reminds me of Askar Mozarov, if you guys remember him. My first ever fighter interview. Yeah, I think this is the same exact case here. I think Volkan gets this done in round 1 by KO, probably the first 2 or 3 minutes. I would be very surprised if this guy Guskov pulls an upset. But yeah, under 1.5, or Oezdamir round 1, or both. Do what you please. But yeah, Oezdamir is the clear side for me here. Next up, we have the real Twitter war of the week. We have Benoit Saint Denis going up against Thiago Moises. Benoit Saint Denis is the younger fighter by 1 year. He's the taller fighter by 2 inches and will have a 3 or 2.5 inch reach advantage in this fight. Here's my thing. Sure, we went from a plus 265 price on Benoit Saint Denis to now he's a minus 150, minus 160 favorite here. But we're also going from a guy who broke his hand in the first couple of exchanges from Ismail Bonfim to a guy in Thiago Moises who is a stud everywhere this fight goes. In the striking, very sound technically, has some good power. In the grappling and wrestling, he can find his own takedowns, and he's a freak when it comes to the jiu-jitsu. Benoit Saint Denis, in round 1, sure, he will come out blazing and just like a man with his head on fire. I think he'll find takedowns in round 1, but he has to stay safe because a grappler like Thiago Moises can lock up his favorite guillotine whenever he wants. I think Thiago Moises has to go through fire for 1 round, and then it's his fight, to be quite honest. I'll be looking at a live spot for Thiago Moises, just the more technical fighter, the fighter who's more sound defensively. And Benoit Saint Denis has showed the capability of gassing as this fight goes on. I just think it was a classic case of overhyping a prospect in his last fight out with Benoit. Sure, he's strong as shit, but this is just, I think this is a fight of levels. So yeah, give me Thiago Moises, even though he's a very popular underdog. I hate it. It's giving me like mush of the week vibes, but yeah, Thiago Moises live spot is probably what I'm going to be looking at here. Next up, we have the co-main event of the evening, Manon going up against Rose Namajunas. Manon is 2 years older at 33 years old. She will be 2 inches taller and will have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. Rose Namajunas moving up to 125 in this fight as well. She will be the much smaller woman. You have to question the will of Rose Namajunas at this point. I think Rose, her head is not really into the fight game anymore. She's stated it in her interviews that she questioned whether she wanted to continue doing this because she doesn't want to hurt people anymore. And going up against someone in Manon who is looking to march her way into a title shot, essentially, and who is no slouch. On the ground, she can hold her own. But in the striking, this girl is insane. Very high striking acumen. The side kicks to keep her opponents at bay are beautiful. And then I really like her hands. Throws a lot of straight shots and sets up her shots with really good feints. That's the one thing I like seeing as a striker myself. I love seeing when someone is using the feints to their advantage and using the feints to set up their hooks and their straights. So I think Rose is going to have a really rude awakening to move up to this 125 weight class in Manon Fiorot. And I think Fiorot wins inside the distance here in Paris and demands a title shot for her next fight. But yeah, give me Manon. The beast. Last but not least, before we get into the main event, if you guys haven't already, I would appreciate a like on the video. It means a lot, and I appreciate you all for showing up this late at night for some of you, and for those on the West Coast, you know, it's barely 10 o'clock. So I appreciate y'all. But main event of the evening, we have Gane going up against Sergey Spivac. Gane is going to be the older fighter by 5 years. He'll be the taller fighter by 1 inch. He will have the reach advantage by 3 inches in this fight, training out of the MMA Factory versus Sergey Spivac, training out of the Polar Bear team. I believe that's his own gym. Bon Gamin, Gane is going to be the fighter who has the massive striking advantage in this matchup. It's almost unreal the way this guy moves at heavyweight. Everything about his striking is just beautiful. The front kicks to the body, as we saw against Tai Tuivasa, that hurt Tai over and over again. The way he sets up his striking is beautiful. A lot of straight shots, and is very patient. And the gas tank holds up. The one issue is his grappling. Sure, he's been training with a high-level judoka this whole time, out of camp and in camp. Sergey Spivac is a guy that likes to take people down through the single leg, the body lock, in the clinch mainly. And Gane is a guy that excels when in the clinch with the knees and the elbows. So I think he may present some trouble for Spivac, given that that's his favorite method of taking people down, which is in the clinch. I'm not too sure what to think of this matchup, because if Gane hasn't improved his wrestling game or his grappling game, and Spivac gets a hold of him, I really think that Spivac can take him down and pound him out on the mat. But on the other hand, if Sergey Spivac fails on a couple of takedown attempts in round 1 and starts the gas going into round 2, this is just going to be trouble, and he's going to get finished inside the distance by knockout. I think the under 3.5 is a solid spot here. I think Gane is likely to be the winner here in Paris. But something is telling me that the polar bear Sergey Spivac is pretty determined to win this fight and head to a title shot. And I just don't think you can improve your grappling and your wrestling in a 6-month period by that much. Sure, you can improve, but to what extent is my point. As someone who has the wrestling of John Jones, I get it, taking you down that easily, sure. But Francis Ngannou, who is not really a wrestler, on a bum knee, taking you down over and over again, overpowering you with a torn ACL and MCL, it's not the best look. So yeah, I'm gonna have to predict that Cyril Gane wins this fight and he stays away from the wrestling. But I would not be surprised at all if Sergey Spivak finds his groove with the wrestling and wins early here. So I think it's Spivak early or Cyril Gane round or late round 2, round 3. That's just my take on this fight. So play it how you like. I'm staying away just because I'm not too confident myself. At this price, kind of have to take the dog shot on Spivak personally, but I would rather just take him inside the distance at this point. But yeah, guys, that was the main event. Really fun card we have tomorrow. Love that it's early. And a lot of really solid matchups with a lot of solid prospects coming into the UFC from the European region. We'll see who's real. We'll see who's fake. And we're going to have a good night or a good morning of fights. So please enjoy it, make some money, and I'll see you guys back here next weekend. Again, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate y'all. Sydney, Australia, 2:53 p.m. That's awesome. You're wide awake. My guy Alec, I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much, and I will see y'all next week for another episode. I think I'm gonna keep doing it at this time on Friday nights, around that 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 midnight Eastern. Just because right now we have 11 viewers, it's around the mid to high point of what we usually get, and usually everyone's free around this time. So I think if you guys like this timing, leave it in the chat. I appreciate it. But yeah, see y'all next week. Peace.